Okay, today we're going to talk about the two good things that happened under the Articles of Confederation. We have been talking about the weaknesses of the Articles of Confederation, and so today we're going to talk about two good laws that came out, or two good ordinances that came out of the Articles of Confederation. I'm going to start with my POTS cartoons. The Confederation Congress, despite its limitations, passed two important laws stating how America's western lands would be divided and governed. Oh boy, here come the settlers. If you look at the bear, he is standing on the Northwest Territory. And you might be asking yourself, okay, well, what is the Northwest Territory? If you take a look at my map over here, you might recognize that these are the Great Lakes. This is the Mississippi River, and this is the Ohio River. The Northwest Territory is this territory between the Great Lakes, the Mississippi River, and the Ohio River. We may know it from the French and Indian War as the Ohio River Valley. Well, it's this territory, this Northwest Territory, that is going to be divided and governed. The rabbit says, I reckon they're going to survey the territory and govern us too. Whoopee, says the frog. Okay, what is the first good law? The first good law is called the Land Ordinance of 1785. It allowed the new Northwest Territory, this area right here, to be surveyed and divided into what we call townships, 6-mile squares, and subdivided into 36 sections, 1 mile square, or 640 acres. The sections would be sold at public auction for a minimum of $1 per acre. And you might be asking yourself, well, that's pretty cheap, and in reality it is cheap. Today an acre could cost up to, or if not more, $10,000 per acre, especially if you go out toward Frisco area or Salina. So the federal government's going to raise quite a bit of money by selling this land to people. Section 16 of each town would be used to support public education, a priceless gift. And this was also something really unique. We never set aside land for public education, so that was something that was kind of interesting. Okay, that is the first good law of the Articles of Confederation. It's called the Land Ordinance of 1785. We're going to move on to the second good law. The second good law is called the Northwest Ordinance of 1787. Again, still talking about that Northwest Territory. This law, what it did is, now that the territory is divided into townships, and we've forbidden slavery, and we also set up land for public education, we're going to organize these territories so that they can become states later on. So the Northwest Ordinance of 1787 forbade slavery in the Northwest Territory, and it allowed it to be politically divided into not less than 3 and not more than 5 territories. It's an interesting fact that the Articles of Confederation talked about forbidding slavery in this western territory. Even though it's written down on paper that slavery is forbidden, that doesn't mean it was in actual practice. Nobody was really enforcing the forbidding slavery there. So a lot of settlers actually did bring their slaves into that territory. So that's just so that you know. So we're going to divide it into not less than 3 and not more than 5 territories. This applied to all subsequent territories. The federal government helped territories make rivers navigable, control floods with river levees, and build roads. There are 3 steps or 3 stages that a government has to go through in order to become a state. Number 1, have a congressionally appointed governor and 3 judges at the first stage. So they have to have a governor and they've got to have 3 judges. 2, they have to have an elected legislator and a non-voting delegate to Congress when the population reached 5,000 free white males. And you might be asking yourself, why free white males? Well, the answer to that is those are the only people who are allowed to vote. Remember, women can't vote. People without property cannot vote. So once you get about 5,000 free white males, then you can elect a legislator and a non-voting delegate to Congress. Number 3, Each of these territories have to write a state constitution, and then they can ask to be admitted to statehood when their above population reach 60,000 people. So in other words, once we have about 60,000 free white males, we write a constitution, then we need to ask for admission to statehood. Texas also went through this process. Texas had to write a constitution, and then they have to be asked in order to become a state. So many of the states will go through that same process. The unique thing about the Northwest Ordinance is that it set an important land policy by incorporating new Western lands as equal states rather than subordinate colonies, a democratic policy rare in history. And that's something unique that you need to think about too, is that, you know, these states were going to be seen as equal, not of lower stature or subordinate. If you think about Europe, in Great Britain and France, you know, anytime they took colonies over and they took land over, those colonies or those lands were actually seen as subordinate or of lower status than the mainland of you know, England or Spain or France. That's not how it's going to work in America. Once a territory becomes a state, it will have the same rights and privileges that all the original 13 states had. So when Texas came into the Union, it's not treated as a second-class citizen. Texas is treated just as equally as the original 13 colonies and 13 states. Okay, so here's what we want you to do. We want you to go ahead and get out a paper, and we're going to ask 3 important questions. And so if you'll just answer these on your paper and be ready to turn these in on the day that this flipped classroom is due. I just kind of wrote these out, sorry for my handwriting. But if you'll go ahead and answer these, if you'll just write your name, date, and period on your paper, and number 1 through 3, and then I'll read these questions to you and you can answer them. You can always go back to look through the video to see the answers if you've missed it. Number 1. What was the name of the territory that was divided and governed? Number 2. In the Land Ordinance of 1785, Section 16 was set aside to support blank and blank. And number 3. What ordinance forbade slavery and organized the territory in order to make states?